Hey guys, Dawn Tomlinson here, team leader of the Tomlinson Group at Remax by the Lake here in St. Joe. I just felt it was super important to just come and talk to you guys a little bit about what's going on in the market. Lots of questions that I get daily about things that are happening with interest rates, inventory, the recession looming over us. And my little catch at the beginning of the video here was, how is the real estate market like weather forecasting? Here's the main reason I feel that way. Real estate is like weather forecasting because you got a lot of people out here trying to look at data and determine what the future holds as far as real estate. Just like weathermen, they look at data, they interpret it. Here's what they think is going to happen. However, they don't always know what's going to happen, and a lot of times it's not correct. There's a lot of information out there. A lot of it's good and a lot of it's not. So I want to throw some really good hard data at you guys today and just talk about, here's some things we're looking at, why they don't believe the market, the real estate market anyway, is going to crash, even in sight of a possible recession and all the things that are happening. So let's dive in and look at some good, cold, hard facts. All right, you ready? All right, guys, so we're going to be looking at a bunch of data here. All of it is going to be for Berrien County. I think that's super important to stick with local data. There's several reasons for that. First of all, what's going on both the coast, east and west, is drastically different than what's happening here in Southwest Michigan. Even when we had the crash back in 2008, what we saw happen was that both those markets were hit, some of them 50-60% crashes in the market back in 2008. What we saw here, even back in that crash, was on average maybe a 10% dip in home value. So I just think it's super important that we stick with local data rather than national, because we have a very specific niche here in Southwest Michigan. We've got the lake here, we've got Whirlpool, we've got Lakeland, we've got quite a few other various different things going on here that draw people into this area, even when the market may be doing crazy things in various other parts of the country. So we're going to look at all local data here. This is all going to be for Berrien County. So let's dive in. First of all, so one of the things I want to talk about is there's this myth out here that because interest rates are rising, it's going to cause, that in and of itself is going to cause the market to crash. We're going to talk about, contrary to interest rates rising, what we're seeing is that the market is still holding its own as far as real estate. We're not seeing a crash. We're not seeing a drastic dip in values by any means. So let me show you here. And I think it's super important to point out. So if you look at my mouse, I'm going to go back to January 2018. What I thought was super interesting is I was curious, what were interest rates back in January 2018? Because even back in 2018, 4 years ago, a lot of people were buying houses and it was still considered what we call the seller's market. At this point in time, I went back and looked and saw that interest rates were about 4.5%. Everybody started freaking out here in this day and age back in January, February, March, when interest rates were starting to hit 4.5%. So I thought it would be kind of interesting to go back, look at that and say, hey guys, people are still going to buy houses, even if interest rates are 4.5%, 5.5%, 6%. So let's not panic yet. So January 2018, we still had a lot of people buying houses. We had 4.9 months supply. And why is month supply important? Well, anything below 3 is considered a very hot seller's market. And as you can see, again, back here in January 2018, in Berrien County, we had 4.9 months supply. And even then, like I said, it was still a seller's market. People were getting great prices for their homes when they were listing them. So we're going to follow this along a little bit here. Going to January 2019, inventory on average was running around about 4.5 months supply. Going to January 2020, 4.2. And as you can see, you follow this graph here, the less supply we have, we're gonna correlate how home prices go up. So we have a simple supply and demand issue. So why am I talking about all of this? Again, if you follow all the way to June 2022, we currently have 1.7 months supply for homes on the market that are available. So how does that relate to interest rates? Right now, what we're seeing, even though interest rates are higher, is that inventory is still extremely low for what we need it to be out here for buyers. So I'm even going to go back, following my mouse here, January 2022. We saw interest rates, everyone was panicking. February, March, interest rates were starting to go up. January, we had 1.6 months inventory. You keep following along. February, still 1.6. March, after everyone knew interest rates had gone up, 1.6, 1.6. May, 1.6. June, we went up to 1.7. So it'll be interesting to see July's data. Interest rates right now, they're, depending on the day, sometimes they'll tweak up a little bit and then they'll tweak back down. I think, let me pull some data here for you. So current rates on average, when I was pulling all this information to prepare for this, we were looking at about 5.375 is the current average interest rate on a basic 30-year conventional. You're putting 20% down. So again, even with that going on, with rates alone going up, we're still seeing, you look at June 2022 inventory is only at 1.7. And remember, we need at least 3 months supply to not be considered a quote unquote hot seller's market. And one of the other things I want to talk about as far as rates, the rates going up are actually causing more of an inventory problem, contrary to what other people were thinking, like, oh, the rates are going to go up and, we're not going to have as many buyers, this, that, the other. True. The problem is that we had such a severe supply and demand issue. We still have a lot of buyers out here. And the other thing that's happening, because rates are going up, is some sellers that were thinking about putting their house on the market, and in turn, we're going to buy something else, they're sitting there not putting their house on the market. So it's like creating this vicious cycle. So rates going up is not necessarily going to make the real estate market crash per se. Now, there's this famous saying that goes around of date the rate, marry the house. And there's a reason for that. So what we statistically have seen is that real estate is going to go up 2 to 5%, not in crazy times, not in crazy markets, just as a whole on average. Obviously, 2008, we had all these crazy factors that were at play that caused that market crash, which none of those factors are at play. But so you're just going to see real estate, it should continue at bare minimum, increase 2 to 5% in value. If you find a house you love, buy it now, because what's going to happen is real estate should, statistically speaking, continue to increase in value. So if you have the mentality of, well, I'm going to wait for interest rates to go down before I buy that house that I want, what's going to happen? We don't know what's going to happen with interest rates. We don't know if they'll ever come back down to the historic lows that we saw. We do know that for sure, real estate is probably going to keep increasing in value. So if you hold out waiting for interest rates to lower, you're going to pay more for that house anyway, just because more than likely it's not going to decrease in value, because there are not really many factors out here indicating a market crash. So marry the house, date the rate, get the house you want now. If you don't love interest rates right now, you don't have to keep that interest rate forever. If you find down the road after you've bought your house, interest rates go down, refinance, get into that better interest rate, lock it down. One of the other options I wanted to talk about is we have a local lender here that we deal with a lot that has some really great options. to help you not have to have that 5.35 interest rate. Just personally speaking, my husband and I, we recently financed, and people were like, oh my gosh, you're crazy. Interest rates have gone up. Well, what we were able to do is a 5.5 year balloon mortgage, because we know we're probably going to be selling our house in that time period anyway, and we really wanted to refinance while the market was doing really well. We had good value in our home, and we took out some of that equity and did some other things with it. So we took advantage of this local lender who has very lower interest rates compared to what's going on out here. I think we got ours at 3.75 because we did a balloon. And then at the end of that balloon, if we haven't sold our house, we'll just refinance. We can actually lock in the current rate we have now. We don't have to get freaked out about, our interest rate's going to be 13 or something like that by that point. So I can always connect you with this local lender and see what options you have as far as that goes too. If you're a current buyer heading out into the market and you're like, man, I just, the 5.35 or, whatever your interest rate might be looking right now, that's freaking you out. We might have some other options. So let's talk about that. Let's see. One of the other things I wanted to talk about, back on the whole marry the house, date the rate. So the other factor here is that most of us, according to the U.S. Census data, is the average person in the United States, I love this, moves on average more than 11 times in his or her lifetime. So again, if you're freaking out about current interest rates and you're like, oh, I can't buy a house right now, more than likely, you're probably going to move at least once or twice, if not 11, over the next few years. So let's not panic, folks. Let's talk. Let's have reasonable conversations about what your options might be as far as a buyer. All right. So moving on to myth number 2 here that I wanted to talk about, the recession that is looming. Everybody's talking about it. The recession is going to cause a housing crash. So here's why the professionals, I don't mean the media, I mean the people who are actually out here in the trenches, don't believe that a recession is going to cause a market crash. And again, I'm going to pull some data here. Reason number 1 is there's a severe housing deficit. Going back to looking over here at my mouse, June 2022, we were at 1.7 months supply for inventory. We still have a supply versus demand issue, even if a recession comes. And let's say half the buyers just like drop off and can't buy a house right now. They've lost a job or, finances are tight because gas is killing them and all the other things. We still have so many buyers out here versus what's actually available to purchase. That should in and of itself sustain the real estate market. We had a lack of new construction over the last few years, so that's not helped the inventory issue. And we have a large amount of new buyers entering the market daily. I think just this last week, I can tell you myself personally, I had 4 new buyers. 4 new buyers get qualified and are actively out here looking. So, and if that's just me, I know, there's got to be a ton more out here doing the same thing. Also, strict lending policies came into play back when the market crash happened in 2008. And a lot of those strict lending policies made it so that we shouldn't be seeing, again, some of the factors that caused the crash in 2008. Myth number 3. So we are, myth number 3 is that everyone believes we are no longer in a seller's market because we're heading for a recession, because interest rates are high, all the things. So let me go back here. One of the other things that I wanted to show you was days on market. So we currently, if you go back to 2018, average days on market was roughly, for January anyway, let's go into like summer months. I like summer. It gives us a little bit better idea. You have a lot more buyers going on. But even in January, average days on market was 34 in January 2018. You head to May, June, 31, 29 in July. And this is again 2018. as you start to inch toward where we are now, our average days on market, and you're talking this is an average, so even stuff that's sitting out there forever is going to tweak these numbers. In June 2022 is 7. So we are still in a seller's market. Sellers, don't panic. You can still put your house on the market. You're still probably going to get a really good price for that house if you go to sell it. What I'm seeing is that maybe, we may still have 30 showings, but there may be 3 to 5 offers instead of 10. We are still seeing cash offers. We're still seeing people maybe waiving inspections and doing crazy things. Not that I necessarily recommend that to people, but it's happening. So it's still a really good time to sell. It's still a seller's market. Again, there's nothing indicating out here that there's any time to panic. The other thing I want to say is, and I think I said this already, buyers, the best time to buy is now. It's always going to be now. If you're sitting around waiting for the perfect scenario based on interest rates, prices of homes, all of that, it's like trying to just take a magic 8-ball, shake it, and make your life decisions on that. Probably not going to be your best strategy. Again, what we can tell you is what things are doing now. Nobody foresaw with COVID that home prices were going to, in some areas, even locally here, went up 50%. I know New Buffalo, certain areas. So the longer you hold out waiting for the market to crash could actually end up costing you more money, and you lost that home that you really had your eyes set on. So let's talk. Let's put some data and common sense to things. Let's hook you up with a lender who can maybe give you some options so you're not going to have to freak out about that interest rate. And let's see what we can do for you guys. I can tell you this, if you continue to rent, if you're a renter, it's like you're paying 100% interest rate. All the money you're putting into that is literally going to your landlord in his retirement account. So at least if you own something, that payment that you're putting into that house, yeah, you're going to have some interest to pay on it, but you are gaining equity. And at the end of that, someday when you go to sell, the idea is that you have equity and you've made yourself a little bit of money and you got your own little nest egg there. So give me a call, 269-470-6962, and let's chat about how we can help you, and let's help you not panic, both sellers and buyers alike. Talk to you guys later. Take care.